At Cheng Jingzhou's funeral, everyone cried loudly. The lawyer he had hired stood beside his coffin. He looked at me with an ambiguous look and said seriously that according to Cheng Jingzhou's will, all the property of the Cheng family, including the garage under his name, would be inherited by his son. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at me again. I had no expression on my face. The other mourners were dumbfounded. They stopped crying and had a gossipy look in their eyes. I lowered my eyes and sneered. I thought I knew Cheng Jingzhou well enough. But I didn't expect that he would choose to publicly announce his illegitimate child in such an occasion. My thoughts unconsciously drifted back to last night. Since a year ago, let's start. Cheng Jingzhou has always been in poor health. Yesterday, he was sent directly to the emergency room. It happened too suddenly. I was shocked. I rushed to the hospital immediately. The doctor handed me a critical illness notice. He sighed and asked me to talk to him quickly. I signed it impatiently. I threw myself on Cheng Jingzhou and told him how reluctant I was. Cheng Jingzhou also knew that he couldn't hold on any longer. His eyes were filled with tears. His face was pale. He held my hand tightly. It was very sentimental. Because I'm sorry for you. I can't bear it any longer. You became a widow at such a young age. If there is an afterlife, I still want to continue to be husband and wife with you. After a few words, he was almost dead. He couldn't breathe. He said everything. He refused to talk about property. I sneered in my heart, but cried loudly. He held his arm tightly and refused to let go. He didn't wait for him to say a few more words. With my help, he died soon. I wiped my tears and put away my emotions. I turned my head to look at the doctor. The hospital was too painful for him. I didn't want him to stay here any longer. The doctor sympathized with my situation. Ms. Shou, I am sorry for your loss. I nodded with sobs. Without waiting for my mother-in-law to arrive at the hospital, I asked someone to send Cheng Jingzhou directly to the crematorium. The sooner he was cremated, the sooner he would rest in peace. It also saved money. It's not because I'm so cruel, but actually I knew Cheng Jingzhou had cheated on me a long time ago. I found out about his cheating a year ago. He came home late every night. But lied to me that he went out to party and drink with his friends. He didn't feel guilty at all. He even sent me the hotel address. He was very open and honest. So I believed him without a doubt. Until one day, I saw his friend shopping with his wife in a luxury store. My intuition told me that something was wrong. I felt a pang in my heart and turned the car around and drove straight to the hotel entrance. I didn't dare to face the reality. I didn't dare to go in. I could only wait for him. He didn't come out. I kept waiting. Until the next morning. I saw him come to the underground parking lot, hugging a drunk and delicate girl. The woman was his cheating partner by Qingran. They got in the car and drove away. That night, after Cheng Jingzhou came home, he was unusually enthusiastic towards me. Something must be wrong. I smiled but didn't smile. I avoided his touch calmly. He was stunned for a moment. A trace of unnaturalness appeared on his face. What's wrong with you, Jean Wei? I shook my head and said that I had my period. I dispelled his doubts. But I secretly started to investigate him. I didn't know until I investigated. I found out that in the second year after our marriage, he started to be dishonest. He was hanging out with Bai Qingran and had a child. It turned out that I had been cheated on for so many years. I was kept in the dark. Thinking like this, Bai Qingran called Cheng Jingzhou. His eyes were wandering. He felt guilty. He hung up immediately. I looked at him calmly and said sarcastically. Please answer it. He forced a smile that was uglier than crying. It was a cooperation call. I'll go and deal with it. After that, he walked straight to the balcony. His fingers jumped rapidly on the keyboard. He typed a reply, "Don't rush me. Just bear with it. I've wanted to divorce you for a long time." Without Zhou Jinwei's family's investment, the Qing family's capital chain can't be carried out at all. Don't worry. Wait until the company has established a firm foothold. I will immediately transfer Zhou's funds and dump her. Then I will marry you openly. Now is not the time. He thought he had made a perfect dress. Seamless. But forgot that his computer was on the table with WeChat. Didn't exit information synchronization. Seeing how cruel he was. Anger surged in my heart. I was so angry that I trembled all over. But I restrained myself. He came back from the balcony. A few minutes later. Looked at me. The eyes were still full of love. Wife. I want to eat the sweet and sour fish you made today. A hint of sarcasm appeared on my lips. It's not the right time yet. He was stunned for a moment. The whole person was visibly flustered. I saw him like this. Moved away lightly. This season is not suitable for eating fish. The fish haven't grown up yet. It's not time to collect the net yet. The sight in front of me gradually focusing. I looked at Cheng Jingzhou's portrait. A trace of disdain flashed in my eyes. After a year. My feelings for him had faded a long time ago. Otherwise I would have to cry for this bastard again. But he died so easily. It's still a pity. The mourners saw that I didn't react. They started discussing in low voices. Cheng Jingzhou and Zhou Jinwei had been married for so many years. I haven't heard that they have a son. Don't tell me I haven't heard of a son coming out of nowhere. Could it be Cheng Jingzhou's illegitimate child? But Zhou Jinwei didn't look surprised by it. Just when they were discussing heatedly. There was a commotion behind them. Everyone looked over. Speak of the devil. The devil will appear. The son has arrived. His mother Bai Qingran has also arrived. Bai Qingran cried so hard that her makeup was ruined. The moment she saw the portrait on the wall. She was shocked. Everyone was stunned. Looked at each other. A trace of doubt flashed across the mother-in-law's eyes. Before we could speak. Bai Qingran knelt down with a plop. Jingzhou, you're gone. How can we live if we're left here? Cheng, why don't you kowtow to your father to send him off? As soon as the words fell. Everyone understood the identity of the mother and son in front of them. Even the always mean mother-in-law narrowed her eyes. Looked at them motionlessly. Bai Qingran was also a sensible person. Pressing her son's head and knocking it to the ground. This is your grandmother. Call her grandmother quickly. Grandma. Perhaps they had practiced it a lot in private many times. Or maybe it's because Cheng Jingzhou and I haven't had a child for so many years. Anyway. As soon as he opened his mouth. The coldness in my mother-in-law's eyes disappeared instantly. She stopped my steps to stop them. She protected them behind her. You said he is Jingzhou's son. What evidence do you have? Bai Qingran cried even more. 6 years ago, I was Cheng Jingzhou's secretary. After a cocktail party. He was unconscious. He accidentally mistook me for his sister-in-law. I resigned the next day. Later. I found out I was pregnant. I wanted to keep the child. So I ran away abroad. I raised the child alone abroad. I never thought of coming back to destroy their relationship. Until a year ago. Cheng Jingzhou met me during a business trip. He left me and brought me back to the country. I then realized that he had always been obsessed with me. Her voice was choked with sobs. She turned her head and looked at me. Her voice was screaming. Now that the child's father has passed away, I must bring the child to see him. Our son is his treasure. The lawyer has already said that Jingzhou left his property to his son. Today we are here to fight for our rights. Bai Qingran's voice stopped abruptly. After listening to her, the mother-in-law's attitude towards her also melted a lot. After all, if what she said was true, then her son would be the only blood of Cheng Jingzhou in the world. I rolled my eyes. Mom. The mother and son must have heard the contents of the will outside and rushed in to fight for the family property, but my mother-in-law ignored me directly. This child does look a bit like Jingzhou when he was a child. After hearing what my mother-in-law said, Bai Qingran became more confident that I said nothing, but just glanced at her coldly. How do you prove that she is your biological child? After all, as the first heir, I have the responsibility to find out the origin of the child. Besides, if I remember correctly, Cheng Jingzhou has been addicted to smoking and drinking for many years and has long lost his fertility. These are the reasons why he and I have not had children for so many years. Hearing this, Bai Qingran immediately pretended and wiped away the non-existent tears. Jingzhou is dead. You have to embarrass us orphans and widows. You can still marry again, but we only have this company he left behind to survive. You must take me. Are they being pushed to the edge? Seeing this, the people around me began to blame me. Why should a woman make things difficult for another woman? Although she is a mistress, that is not her intention. She is also a victim. After a man cheats, he can hide away beautifully, but another woman has to bear everything. This original wife is too cruel. For the sake of inheritance, she wants the Cheng family to be extinct. She wants him to be a woman with a child. How can he live? Seeing this, Bai Qingran's face turned pale and his lips trembled. It seemed that he had suffered a great injustice. But my attitude remained unchanged. If you want to inherit the company, you must do a paternity test. Seeing that I was gritting my teeth, Bai Qingran winked at her son. The next second, he cried and threw himself on Cheng Jingzhou's coffin. Next to the material. Dad. Why don't they want to acknowledge me? And they are all scolding my mom. If only you were still here. The world of adults is indeed complicated. It's all for money. But all that money is what you left me. Dad. One wave after another. His wailing echoed throughout the morning hall. When everyone was complaining, mother-in-law interrupted the farce. Okay, Zhou Jinwei. You don't have to be so stingy. You haven't left any children for our Cheng family for so many years. It's reasonable for Jingzhou to cheat. Let's stop here today. After the paternity test, everything will be settled. She is eager to shed the only blood for her baby son. But little did she know, I had already prepared. I didn't say anything but slowly walked towards the coffin. With a clatter, I lifted the coffin with one hand. The coffin lid fell to the ground with a not-so-damp sound. I pointed at the urn inside and smiled. I'm so sorry. My husband was taken away for cremation yesterday. He is my husband. You want to exploit the dead? I don't agree. Now the last glimmer of hope was also shattered. Bai Qingran straightened her body instantly. Her fingertips were deeply embedded in the flesh. Blood was dripping out. The floor was stained. She couldn't inherit Cheng Jingzhou's property. Her eyes immediately turned red. She climbed up from the ground with her hands and feet. She screamed. Aimed without the previous disguise. You little bitch. Don't think you can ride on my head just because you are the original wife. Cheng Jingzhou loves the person is me. The property is also left to me and my son. You want to cut off your relationship with us after he dies? Bah! Don't even think about it. The moment the voice fell, Cheng Jingzhou's portrait loosened and fell to the ground. It was broken into pieces. The mother-in-law's face immediately turned livid. Okay, my son's funeral was a good one. You made it a mess. While saying this, the mother-in-law pulled her to the door and let go. But at the end, she added, when will you get the evidence? When will you come to us? After all, we, the Cheng family, will not let outsiders raise their sons. I laughed. The mother-in-law seemed to be scolding, but in fact, she was giving Bai Qingran a reminder. Sure enough, the old ones are still the best. That night, the reporter had posted the video online that I deliberately hired a bunch of internet trolls to stir up the discussion. I also put a lot of traffic into it. In just a few minutes, the mistress made a scene at Cheng Zong's funeral hall with a clear conscience. This entry quickly became a hot search. Various marketing accounts forwarded the video crazily. They also added texts that mislead the public. The comment area was full of scolding from Diao Qingran. It was even more harsh than the scolding that day. I really don't know where the third sister got the courage. Her words were full of loopholes. She would do anything for money. Is it yours? You just fight for it. You can be both the boss and the mistress. The original wife was the eldest daughter of the Zhou family. When has she ever been bullied like this? That child is also a character. She threw herself on the coffin and started howling. After a while, she revived. If you don't scare him to death. I always think that this child is the mistress. Tool man. The internet was scolded fiercely. At the same time, many netizens began to stand up for me. My private messages poured in. A lot of comforting words. Even my stock rose. Some big customers caught this wave of traffic and offered cooperation to my family. Everything is going in a good direction. Bai Qingran saw that he was scolded bloody. I was so angry that I couldn't speak for a moment. Posted a sensational text on his account. Wanted to put the blame on me. Unfortunately, netizens are not fools. Will not be fooled. After a period of silence, Bai Qingran was greeted with more intense scolding. Really treat us as leeks to be cut. Always say that you are pitiful. Why don't you show me the evidence? Come on, you really think you are a god, whatever you say is the truth, why are you still not honest, still wanting to turn over a new leaf, wrinkles all over your face when you smile, plastic surgery gone wrong, too old, still wanting to compete with Zhou Jinwei. I looked through these comments and couldn't help but laugh out loud. At the same time, several authoritative lawyers posted videos on their accounts, publicly stating that they could provide me with free help at any time, and defend my rights. I immediately contacted one of the lawyers. After Cheng Jingzhou's death, the property issue had not been settled. I couldn't let Bai Qingran and his son get a penny of this money. I was busy as hell. On the other hand, a few days later, Bai Qingran went straight to my mother-in-law. She pulled up the chat records with Cheng Jingzhou from her phone and showed them to my mother-in-law. The mother-in-law was stunned. But before she could say anything, Bai Qingran put on a pitiful look and showed her the video of Cheng Jingzhou playing with the child. Logically, I should call you mom. Jingzhou and I really love each other. He is my only child. He is really Jingzhou's biological child. Otherwise, he is not a fool. How could he be so good to the child? It turns out that Bai Qingran really has a relationship with Cheng Jingzhou. The mother-in-law frowned. Looked at her suspiciously. Still didn't believe it. Bai Qingran gritted his teeth. She actually showed him their intimate photos directly. There was even a video. This was solid evidence. The last trace of worry on the mother-in-law's face disappeared. Surprise appeared in her eyes. My family is really good. Jing Zhou left, leaving behind a son. Bai Qingran was relieved. A proud look flashed in her eyes. Auntie. Jing Zhou gave all his property to the child. Unfortunately, Zhou Jinwei, an outsider, refused to let him go. I suspect Jing Zhou was pissed off to death by him. She started crying as she spoke. My mother-in-law always disliked me. When she heard her bewitching words, she rolled her eyes. My son's surname is Cheng. Why does she, an outsider, refuse to let go of my family's money? I must get the money back today. When I saw that they were the ones coming, I was so angry that my head was buzzing. But I still managed a sarcastic smile. Netizens are right. These three are so great. They can find helpers. Bai Qingran was hurt by my smile. She felt a little embarrassed. She was so angry that her face twisted slightly. She calmed down after a few seconds. She looked at me with a smug look on her face. She looked like a winner. You jumped around for a few days some time ago. You thought you were something, right? Now I have evidence to prove that my son is Jingzhou's biological son. Before she finished her words, her mother-in-law interrupted her and ordered them, my son's property is for my grandson. Don't think that you will be fine just because all netizens are on your side, that I am a sensible person. Now that my grandson is back, don't think of taking my son's property. Since you are my former daughter-in-law, I advise you to deal with it as soon as possible, otherwise. Don't blame us for taking you to court. The air fell into silence. I smiled but didn't smile. Mom. Jingzhou's body is still warm. Don't listen to other people's nonsense. There's no paternity test. Don't give money to someone else's seed. I kindly advised her. But she mistakenly thought I didn't want to give money. She immediately changed her face. Grabbed the door frame with both hands. Eyes wide open. You still said my son is infertile. I think you are the one who is infertile. I've seen all their photos. Don't try to cheat. She didn't say that when she beat Bai Qingran to death. Bai Q. Ingran looked at her mother-in-law protecting her so much. I didn't want to argue anymore. Opened the photos and videos in the album. I wished I could face my mother-in-law. I've already investigated. Bai Qingran is a woman with a chaotic private life. Goes in and out of romantic places all day. Is the child Cheng Jingzhou? It's not certain. She has videos with Jingzhou. She must have videos with other men. They are clearly recorded. Bai Qingran holds the arms of different men. In and out of the hotel. She is graceful and charming. She still has a charming smile on her face. My mother-in-law's eyes are staring straight. My words are stuck in my throat. She suddenly turns her head and glares at Bai Qingran. Didn't you say that my son was the only one? Bai Qingran saw the videos on my phone. She was immediately broken. She was so anxious that she wanted to come up and grab my phone. I took it back in time. She immediately found out that she couldn't do these things. This must be Zhou Jinwei using my photos to replace his face with AI. He is still stubborn when he is about to die. I snorted twice. There are also surveillance cameras in the hotel. If you don't admit it, we can go there in person. She was speechless now. Her face turned from red to white. Seeing this, the mother-in-law understood everything. Her eyebrows were raised. She raised her hand and hit her in the face. Bai Qingran had no time to react. He was beaten. The mother-in-law had a bad temper to begin with. Now she was used as a gun. She was furious. She wanted to kill Bai Qingran right now. Seeing that she was about to punch and kick Bai Qingran was completely panicked. He screamed and broke his voice. My body is not clean. But the child is indeed Cheng Jingzhou's. This is the only child in your Qing family. If you beat me to death, my son will hate you. Hearing this, the mother-in-law stopped and hesitated. After all, she didn't know is what she said true or false. It seems that the heat is not yet high. I pulled my mother-in-law to my side again. Mom, I don't know whether I should tell you something. In fact, the reason why Cheng Jingzhou's health took a turn for the worse a year ago was not because of a car accident and hospitalization, but because I saw Bai Qingran huddled on the ground and trembling. I choked up and said, because Bai Qingran asked Cheng Jingzhou to donate a kidney to the child. Cheng Jingzhou was really stupid. In order to play the role of a good father, he donated it. My mother-in-law didn't expect that there would be such a thing. For a moment, she forgot how to react. I continued to exaggerate. If it weren't for the loss of a kidney, Cheng Jingzhou would not have died so early. It's just a pity that he was used as a gun. Now you have also been bewitched to find trouble with me. Annoyed. Mom. We have been married for 7 years. I am the one who is sincere to Jingzhou. I stopped talking. She covered her face and sobbed. Bai Qingran was speechless. I don't know if she was angry or scared. Blood marks oozed from her eyes. Zhou Jinwei. Stop spitting blood. When did I ask him to donate a kidney? I moved my fingers away. A trace of satisfaction flashed across my eyes. I have already checked everything. The hospital still has a record. She was speechless immediately. My mother-in-law heard what I said. She realized what I meant. She gritted her teeth and almost fainted from anger. She no longer cared about whether she had a child or not. One hand grabbed Bai Qingran's hair. The other hand slapped her crazily. Swearing non-stop. Bai Qingran screamed. Her face soon swelled up like a pig head. I was so amazed. Indeed. For my mother-in-law, grandchildren are not as important as sons. After that day, Bai Qingran had several scratches on her face and a strand of her hair was pulled out. She had seen how fierce my mother-in-law was. She didn't dare to go to her son's family again for a short time. But my mother-in-law obviously didn't want to let her go. When she thought about her precious son losing a kidney, she was so angry that she couldn't sleep at night. She went to Bai Qingran every few days to make trouble and asked for a huge amount of money. As soon as she opened her mouth, she asked for compensation of 2 million yuan. Bai Qingran was so scared that he didn't dare to go out. My mother-in-law called a few people, holding banners and making a scene at the door of Bai Qingran's company. She also printed out all the romantic photos I showed her before and publicized them all over the internet. Bai Qingran was proclaimed the next day. He was fired and permanently banned from the industry. Evildoers must be punished by evildoers. The shady tricks that the mother-in-law came up with made people sigh. After messing up Bai Qingran's work and personnel, the mother-in-law was not ready to give up. She even went to the door of her son's kindergarten and held a loudspeaker to force him to be fired. Many parents were worried that it would have a bad influence on their children. They reported to the school and wanted to expel the child. The school could not withstand the pressure of public opinion and sent him home. Many reporters stood at the forefront of public opinion and posted a series of events on the internet. Combined with the previous disturbance in the funeral hall, netizens scolded Bai Qingran even more harshly. His reputation was completely ruined. And during this period of time, I took advantage of my mother-in-law's inattention. The situation on the side. With the help of an authoritative lawyer, I quickly transferred the property under Cheng Jingzhou's company name, sold the shares and cashed in the car and house under his name, etc. The public opinion on the internet quickly returned to normal. I have also come to the end. I have made a foolproof plan. Bai Qingran did not let me down. After the scolding during this period of time, she really found me. With a paternity test certificate. When she found me, she regained her complacent look. Grabbing her son in one hand and the paternity test form in the other hand, she sneered disdainfully. Fortunately, I was lucky enough. I found the hair left by Cheng Jingzhou at home. The evidence is conclusive. Now let me see if you have anything to say. As she said this, she threw the form on me. Cheng Jingzhou's remains. The order has been legally effective. Don't try to escape. Return my son's company as soon as possible. I can still spare your life. She looked down at me. She was sure that I could not refute it. I looked at the list in my hand in disbelief. My whole body suddenly became weak. Tears gradually accumulated in my eyes. My vision became blurry. My voice choked. In fact, you don't need to tell me. I was originally going to return the company to your son. I have investigated during this period. Cheng Jingzhou did cheat on his wife and had an illegitimate child. At the end of the words, I was already crying. Bai Qingran was stunned for a moment. I didn't expect that I would compromise so easily. A trace of doubt flashed across her face, but it was fleeting. She immediately returned to normal. She snorted coldly and said, "You'd better be smart. Sign the contract as soon as possible. Maybe if I'm happy, I can even give you tens of thousands of dollars." As soon as I finished speaking, I was silent for a few seconds. I took out the company transfer contract that I had prepared long ago from my bag. She saw the contents clearly. Her eyes instantly lit up. I reached out and snatched it away. She was surprised and happy. She was like a wolf and a tiger. Seeing that she didn't want to sign immediately, I reminded her at the right time that this was my decision. If my mother-in-law knew about this, she would definitely come back. So you must keep it a secret. Before I finished speaking, she took out a pen and signed it impatiently. She signed the contract while muttering something. The company is ours. I'll see how that old woman can regret it. It's written in black and white. It's clear. The contract came into effect. I lowered my head and said nothing. I had already transferred all the company's assets. They were brainless and signed the contract without hesitation. Little did they know that Cheng Jingzhou had lost money in many projects he invested in during his lifetime. They were about to take over a large debt. Their nightmare began today. Thinking of this, I didn't stay there for long. I turned around and glanced at the reporter hiding in the dark. A strange smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. As expected, this video was posted online again. A new round of scolding was set off online. How could this person not listen no matter how he was scolded? I have never seen such a shameless thing. Look at that arrogant look. It's disgusting. Cheng Jingzhou is not a good person either. He cheated during marriage. He should have left the house with nothing. He actually dared to leave his property to me. Illegitimate child. He is so daring. It's a pity that Zhou Jinwei is devoted to Cheng Jingzhou. But in the end, he is treated like this. This is the first time I see a mistress so self-righteous. But no matter how she is scolded online, Bai Qingran is unmoved. Thinking that she can do whatever she wants since she has money. She has nothing to fear. She actually started to scold those netizens. She even said that when she makes the company bigger and stronger, she will sue those netizens in court. Now the netizens are angry. The passers-by who saw the words also became black fans. Some hackers even stole Bai Qingran's account. Someone found out his home address and posted bloody clothes at her door every day. Bai Qingran still disdains. Wanted to use superpowers to buy water army. To suppress those comments. But she opened the company account. But she found that the company was in debt of several million. She was stunned immediately. The company was already an empty shell. After realizing that I had tricked her, she immediately lost her mind. She grabbed a knife and rushed to my door. Fortunately, I was prepared. I had moved a long time ago. In the surveillance, he was like a madman. He chopped the door with a knife. Several deep scratches appeared on the solid wood door. It can be seen how much force he used. He was panting from the chops. She was still full of hatred. A few minutes later, she took out a pot of gasoline from somewhere and poured it on the door. She took out a lighter and prepared to burn him. I cursed him in my heart as a madman, but I called the police. The police and firefighters arrived at the scene at the same time. Fortunately, the fire was not big. After the firefighters put out the fire, the police directly took Bai Qingran took her back to the police station, caused arson. Bai Qingran was detained for half a month, but I didn't expect that she was still dishonest after she came out. She naively thought that netizens had forgotten the disgusting things she had done. She even tried to make money on the internet. She started a live broadcast. She invested a lot of traffic with her OnlyFans. Seeing that the number of people online in the live broadcast room was increasing, she cried and accused me of all kinds of evil deeds. To prove that she was innocent, she also released the contract signed that day. She also posted the paternity test of her son and Cheng Jingzhou. All this was set up by Zhou Jinwei. She really took great pains to make me fall into the trap that my son is less than 6 years old. She treated us like this. As she's still a human being. If the company didn't owe millions of dollars in debt, how could she be willing to give it to me? Fortunately, netizens, we were all reasonable. We were not misled by her remarks. Instead, we found loopholes in his words. Within a few minutes, her comment section was filled with all kinds of sarcasm. You really take us for fools. There is no problem with the contract. You were the one who fought for the company. Why are you unhappy after getting it? Are you worried about something? Bai Qingran wanted to continue to play the victim. But netizens didn't buy it. The internet has memory. They dug up a series of previous mischievous behaviors of Bai Qingran and his son. They also treated her as a joke. She didn't get anything from live streaming. She was scolded again. Bai Qingran was so angry that his eyes and mouth were crooked. The mother-in-law only thought about her son's kidney being dug out. Not to mention protecting Bai Qingran and his grandson. It was good enough that she didn't scold them. Bai Qingran was isolated and helpless. That I have been secretly watching Bai Qingran's state. Seeing that the time is almost up, I called her. When she heard that it was me on the phone, she gnashed her teeth in anger. Like a real psychopath, she cursed at you for pretending to be noble. You pretend to be pure and harmless. But you are actually more poisonous than a scorpion. You will get retribution sooner or later. You will be hit to death when you go out. She kept cursing. She did not hide her slander and curses against me. I listened silently. I snorted coldly. When she cursed until she had no strength to speak, I spoke lightly. But now the people who are being abused by the whole network are you and your son. The third sister and the illegitimate child. TSK. They are not presentable. She was silent immediately. I could only hear the rapid breathing. I could even imagine that she was so angry that she couldn't stand. Thinking of this, he hooked his lips and continued to provoke you. You said that there are so many people scolding you online now. Hearing this, he laughed in anger. His voice suddenly became calm. What are you barking at? Believe it or not, I can ruin your reputation one day. I sneered disdainfully. My fingertips tapped the table regularly. There was a sound of da-da. There was a smile and ridicule in my voice. You coward. You don't have the ability. After that, I hung up the phone directly. Next, I just had to wait for her to lose her temper. I heard about her again a month later. She seemed to have suddenly become a different person. She was extremely enthusiastic about me. Zhou Jinwei. I thought about it for a month. I still found that my previous cognition was too superficial. It turned out that you are the most sober person. My son has also realized his mistake. If you are willing to give us another a chance, we want to invite you to travel for free. Go and experience the customs and people of Yunnan. I know that's the place you always wanted to go. Let's do this as compensation. I replied with a question mark. But she thought I was hesitating. She directly sent me an address. I sincerely hope you can give us another chance to correct it. The location she sent me was the border. I almost immediately realized what she wanted to do. She wanted to sell me out. It seems that she listened to what I said last time. Thinking of this, the curve of my mouth became more and more obvious. I agreed directly. I couldn't wait to see this good show. While ensuring my own safety, I still went to the address where she asked me to meet. I hid in the dark and looked over there. Bai Qingran had arrived early. His face was full of excitement that could not be concealed that in front of her was a foreigner who spoke poor Chinese. The foreigner was a little impatient that he hadn't arrived yet. Bai Qingran glanced at the time and smiled flatteringly. I'll be here soon, don't worry. Today, this is a big shot. Her family is rich and she's beautiful. Don't worry, as long as you can successfully trick him abroad. I will definitely be able to take all the property under his name. I will split it with you 5,050 at that time, and you will definitely benefit from it. The foreigner then quieted down. Things are indeed developing in the direction I expected. I sneered and continued to pay attention to them. They are quite patient. They stayed there for another 2 hours until the sun set. I didn't show up. The foreigner couldn't wait any longer. He gave him a fierce look. Are you kidding us? Is he coming or not? If he doesn't come, I will tie you and your son up. Bai Qingran smiled kindly and trembled slightly with fear. He called me with shaking hands. I hung up without hesitation. Send a message. Something urgent happened, not going. The foreigner had good eyesight. He also saw the message I sent. His face changed immediately. Before Bai Qingran could say anything, he took out a towel sprinkled with drugs from his pocket and covered his mouth and nose. The drug was very effective. His eyes widened and he fainted immediately. Bai Qingran's son, who was playing alone in the distance, saw this scene and screamed in fear. The foreigner snorted and did it neatly. He also fainted. I couldn't stop laughing. Bai Qingran thought I would go, so he made a promise. I broke my promise. Those human traffickers were ruthless and could only tie them up to get the job done. Sure enough, the next second after they were knocked unconscious, several people ran out immediately and moved the mother and son to the car. The car was shipped abroad. They would never come back after this trip. My life gradually returned to normal. A few months later, I suddenly received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Bai Qingran on the other end. There was a sobbing tone in his voice. He begged me for mercy in a low voice. Please, please, for the sake of our acquaintance, redeem us. My son is a member of the Cheng family. Do you really want to watch him suffer here and never get out? I couldn't help laughing out loud. But before I could reply, my ex-mother-in-law couldn't sit still anymore. She might as well pay to redeem the child. As for Bai Qingran, she would ignore her. After all, the Cheng family only had this one descendant. After the anger of the ex-mother-in-law passed, she hesitated again and still wanted to use the money to rescue her. But she didn't have the financial power now. He had always disliked me in the past. Now that I was the head of the family, how could I do as he wished? I hung up the phone, snorted coldly, and told the ex-mother-in-law the truth of the matter. But he was not Cheng Jingzhou's biological son at all. During this period of time, I had already investigated. Bai Qingran was pregnant. She raised the child and asked Cheng Jingzhou to take over. The child was not Cheng Jingzhou's at all. At first, Bai Qingran used a fake paternity test certificate to fool Cheng Jingzhou. Cheng Jingzhou loved his son dearly and even removed a kidney for him. Because of the kidney removal, he died early. After learning all this, my ex-mother-in-law's face was so dark that water could drip out of it. She was completely disappointed and her eyes were filled with hatred. No wonder my precious son was in poor health because he donated his kidney to this bastard. Redemption is useless. Even if they escape back, I will beat them half to death. After getting a satisfactory answer, I turned around and left. Later, after a long period of fermentation on the internet, the Cheng family's business declared bankruptcy. My ex-mother-in-law was so angry that she had a heart attack and fell ill. The Zhou family expanded its industry and attracted many partners. It really entered the limelight. There was no news from Bai Qingran anymore. I guess he was tortured to the point of insanity. At this time, someone threw me another invitation for cooperation. I smiled with relief. As expected, without villains in life, everything goes smoothly.